Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are in the art world. Today, the art docs are welcoming Staffan Ahrenberg from Cahiers. How are you, Staffan? Thank you so much for being with us today.
Good morning, Carolina. Thank you for having me on your platform.
It is an honor. It is an honor, Staffan. Staffan, can you tell the audience, the art talk community, who is Staffan Ahrenberg and what inspired you to be in the art world, and of course to continue the legacy of Cahiers, or relaunch the legacy of Cahiers.
So I don't know how I explain who I am, but I will try to answer your question. I'm Swedish originally. I grew up in an art world. I grew up in a very art collecting family. My father was very, very active, both collecting and having an artist residency in Switzerland. And so that was part of my childhood and youth. Then I became a film producer and an entrepreneur in my life. And I moved to Los Angeles and Hollywood and produced different things in my life until I fell upon Cahiers in 2010 by accident, and really by accident bought it. And it was in the nick of time. I think it was going to disappear. And it was extraordinary to be able to acquire the last, and the most important and the last living in the sense that it was not dismantled, art publishing house from the 20th century in Paris. So that's what happened. And the decision to do so was purely instincts, nothing else.
It was a wonderful decision then.
So it was an issue of serendipity and fate, I would say. Yeah.
Yes, but could you also, how important is for the history of art Cahiers? Because
no, but Cahiers it's an icon of the 20th century. It was founded in 1926 by this Greek extraordinary art historian and publisher, one could say. He became Christian Zervos, and he created several things, but the main thing he created is sort of a revue, which maybe in American one would call a magazine. It's not a magazine, it's a sort of journal that was came out several times a year irregularly. There was never a date for any issues he did. And that was active between 1926 and 1960. Okay. With Matisse, started with Matisse, it was Duchamp, it was all the major contemporary artists of that time. And as Paris was the center of the art world at that time, until I would say the 50s, early 60s, when it migrated to New York, and he was kind of the epicenter of that art world. And he had another incredible capability, which was the design and typography that he used to put this whole thing together. And he worked also on many different spectrums. He was equally interested in Greek civilization and in primitive art and in poetry and architecture. So it was a very, very rich environment of publication. And there was a few others at the time that were also good. They didn't last as long. And Zervos did another thing. He started in 1929 Picasso's catalog, Raisonné, with Picasso. And the first volume came out in 1932. It became 34 books, took 46 years to make, and it's the Bible of Picasso. So that's another endeavor. Plus there was a gallery, which was run by his wife, Yvonne, and they had, amazing Julio Gonzalez first exhibition in Paris, Kandinsky, Mondrian, Magritte, Picasso many times, etc. So it was a very, very active coexistence between publishing and art exhibition.
And it is a beautiful, you know, I've been there in last December, and you showed me, you know, where you are in nearby Saint-Germain.
Yeah, it's situated in Saint-Germain on Rue du Dragon, where in the space where it was founded in 1926, and the mixture of those rare books and contemporary art today, or modern and contemporary art, both, because we do a kind of you know, like a metronome of the contemporary art of Zervo's time to the contemporary art of today, which I think is another specificity of what we can do with this particular brand.
And it's beautiful. I think, you know, the dialogue, so you're in between, so it's a beautiful romantic, if we can say, place. But also I saw last time there was a beautiful exhibition, as you said, between the two to keep the tradition and to be always open to new emergent artists. And tell me, so you must have seen so many also extraordinary people throughout your life, Staffan. There was one in particular that inspired you, and why?
But that's a more complicated question. Yes, I have met amazing people in my life. I would say that the three people that inspired me, one I never met, and that was Malevich. The one you won't know who it is, but he was a remarkable German abstract artist who I happen to know from my father's artist residency. He never became famous, but his name was Axel Knipschild. And he was a kind of a mentor of mine when I was 19 years old. He introduced me to Malevich, and I read all of Malevich's writings that summer when I was 19, which helped me understand and open the doors in my mind to abstraction in a different way than what I understood before reading that. I would recommend to anyone who's interested in art to read Malevich's writings. I think it's a big door opener. And and I would say that later on in life, one of the artists that inspired me and I enjoyed tremendously meeting is the first artist whom we published when I relaunched Cahiers, and it's Ellsworth Kelly. So I had the chance and honor to meet him in 2011, and we published our first publication, which came out in October 2012, was Ellsworth, was an exhibition. And then I started his catalog raisonné. We're publishing his catalog raisonné, which he had already started working on for a long time. And very happy that volume 1 of that 5-volume series of books came out in November 2015, where I spent a day with him up in Spencertown in New York State. And this happened to be, no one would know that, he was 91 years old, 2 months before he passed away. And he was in great shape, and we had a great time, and he was very, very happy about that book, and so was I. So, and now we're continuing with his heir, Jack Shear, and the Ellsworth Kelly Foundation. So
bello. And I think, you know, these moments will stay forever. This is something that is extraordinary. But now, again, this is something to what you said. So you must have done so many exhibitions throughout Cahiers. Is it this one that stayed with you in your heart, or is also any other ones that you would like to share with us?
No, I think there were many that's difficult to choose among these exhibitions, but I would say one very special exhibition was an exhibition we did in correlation with I think it was our 4th issue of Cahiers, which was dedicated to Calder in France, because Calder started his publishing, being published in 1929 by Cahiers. So he was very early on. Zervo's was publishing Calder, and they became quite close. And, you know, Calder spent time in France, and he built a building in a house which became his studio, about an hour and a half from Paris, near Tours in Sachet. And that house has become an artist residency run by the Calder Foundation through a French foundation, of which I happen to be on the board. And this artist residency, which welcomes 3 artists a year in Calder's old studio. The year when we did this, the Calder in France issue, we decided to showcase 5 artists who had been residents of that foundation. And one of them was Monika Sosnowska, and Monika was the resident at the time when we did this. So I invited her to do a show at Cahiers, which I would say was one of the most beautiful shows we had. We built a 10-meter long table in simple, I don't know what you call it, contreplaqué. I mean, very simple table, but where she put everything. It was filled with paper cutouts, hanging models of each of her enormous metal sculptures, because each metal sculpture starts with a very delicate paper cutout that she does. And it was like a little, you know, jewel museum show. And the other gallery, the second gallery we have, she did an edition for us, which was 1970s industrial lamps, hand painted in a kind of white, gray, pink color. And we had the space completely empty, and we installed the lamps in the ceiling. And it was like a constellation of stars. So it was a very beautiful show.
Beautiful. Oh, I can't wait. You know, actually, we were there. While you were talking, we could see it. It's beautiful, beautiful. But what would you say, Staffan, since you met so many artists, what would you say to an emergent artist? What to do today? What would be your advice?
It's to really work with their heart and mind and not listen to the market. That's all.
Yes. Sometimes, though, it's a bit difficult.
Mm-hmm. That's what
Yes, but it's a beautiful, yes, it is what they should do, especially nowadays with all this new challenges that we face. And Staffan, a book that you're reading at the moment?
I always read several books at the same time. It's true. It's one of the books I just finished, which I highly recommend for people who are in the art world, is to read a book called Picasso's War, written by Hugh Eakin, who's an American journalist. It's not necessarily about Picasso. It's a lot about Picasso, but it's not about Picasso. It's really the story of how late contemporary art of the time, what we call modern art today, arrived in America. I mean, modern art in America did not exist before the mid-late 20s. And if you think about it, when I say that, I mean, Matisse, Picasso there were at least 30 works of each of those artists in Moscow in 1908, right? So there were amazing collections in Czech Republic, in Germany, in Switzerland, etc. And probably in Italy, I don't know, by the contemporary major artists at that time. In America, none, not even a Van Gogh. There was no Cézanne at the Metropolitan before the 20s. And it was total rejection and it's fascinating to see there was, in fact, there was one man, and first half of the book is dedicated to this man called John Quinn, who was a lawyer in New York, who fabulous. He had the Museum of Modern Art in his apartment. He had the most important works, and he was incredible how he collected and what he had. Unfortunately, he died of cancer in 1925 without, strangely, a will where this would become the Museum of Modern Art. So everything got dispersed. So this Alfred Barr young man, who then knew John Quinn, who created the Museum of Modern Art, he had to start from scratch. And it's fascinating book, really fascinating book.
Beautiful, beautiful, and can't wait. And I don't know how you do it to read different. It's already for me. It's already difficult to read, to finish one. I have to say. Well, I love reading, but you know, it is the only moment it's in the evening, and then I haven't finished one since it's a month now. You're amazing.
I'm reading another book. I just finished them. I'm reading several books. I'm reading another book, which is a book in Swedish written by a Swedish fascinating character just in the late 30s and beginning of the 40s. He left Europe to avoid, not to avoid, he was traveling, and it made him avoid World War II. So this book is set in Guatemala. He's traveling with one of the most famous Swedish painters of the time. And they were together on a trip. And the book is called Among Reds and Whites in Guatemala. And it's a fascinating description of how that society how Guatemala evolved from the Indian population. I mean, from its society in general, but with, of course, the Indian population and the Spanish remains of conquistadors, etc. And so there are many books to read, and it's a joy to read a book.
It is a joy. It's just to find a moment in time, I have to say. But to this, you must have a favorite quote, Staffan.
I have a number, but I'm going to give you one.
Okay.
I produced a movie about 30 years ago with Robert Longo as the director. And the movie was called John and a Mnemonic, starring Keanu Reeves, and it was written by William Gibson. And William Gibson is alive. He lives in Vancouver. He's probably the foremost future, I don't like the word science fiction writer in the world today. I mean, a revered author. And he has many great quotes. And one of his quotes I really love. And he wrote this already in the late 80s. And it says, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed."
we can do an entire art talk with this. Beautiful. Yes, fascinating indeed. But Staffan, do you miss the movie, this moment in your life, or you are actually doing something and we don't know that you can share?
Both.
Yeah. Yes.
Answer both and no more comments.
Okay. So you leave us in suspense. Indeed. Okay. And any projects with Cahiers that you could share?
Yeah, the next we're opening very different ones. We're opening very soon an exhibition and a project. We're making a print. We're going to make a book with a young Rio-based artist, Maxwell Alexander, and just opened before Art Basel. And after that, we're doing a project with Rosa Barba, and which is followed by a project and publication with Philippe Parreno. So that's the program for this next 6 months.
Couple of weeks. No, I'm joking, a couple of months. But that's really, as you said, fascinating, and it's beautiful when you see all the exhibitions and the publication that you did. It's really truly impressive. Thank you, Staffan, for being with us today. And I know it's a holiday, so we got very early in the morning. Thank you so much for being here with us. And I hope you have a wonderful week, and we meet you in Basel shortly.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolina and François, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. Grazie. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Ciao, Staffan. Grazie. Bye.